You're listening to The Fix with Ryan Rothstein, live from the Prop Swap studios of AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. Prop swap that ticket and cash in while the odds have improved. Once again, here's Ryan.
All right, welcome back to The Fix, Friday edition, 10:30. So it's time for NFL Eagles insider Johnny Mack. Follow John on Twitter at JF McMullen, PhillyVoice.com, Sports Illustrated at SI.com, and host of Extending the Play, which you can listen to tomorrow morning, every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. All right, John, let's do it. Eagles and Saints one more time here.
Yeah, 3-8-1 against 10-2. Typically, it wouldn't be that exciting as you're heading down the final month, kind of a lost season for the Eagles, but obviously a little bit of a shot in the arm for interest, at least, in the move from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts. So I think everybody's excited to see what is different. Is anything different? Is he better? Is the offense better? And I think those are fun things that will be answered. And I think we'll have at least, you know, it's not going to be a large sample size, everybody, but I think you'll see by some of the things that go on a clearer path of, you know, has it been Carson Wentz or has it been just a poor supporting cast? And, you know, honestly, it's probably the boring answer. It's probably you're going to find out it's both, but still interesting.
Injury report one more time. Jason Peters to the IR and a bunch of other names on the injury report for Friday, December 11th.
Yeah, I mean, T.J. Edwards is probably the biggest name that's not going to play. Obviously, you have the Saints, and you think about what they are at this particular time with Taysom Hill playing quarterback and Alvin Kamara, who might be the best dual threat running back as far as running and receiving. He leads the Saints in both, which is kind of amazing. Obviously, Michael Thomas has been hurt for much of the year, so that explains the receiving, but still, it's pretty impressive. And Latavius Murray, which I think people don't realize. I mean, they sort of have that duo the Eagles wanted to put together as the Thunder and Lightning, and he's a great between the tackles runner and really effective. So, you know, T.J. Edwards is right there with Alex Singleton is in the conversation to be the best run stuffer the Eagles have, and this is probably a week you would want him. Rudy Ford, we've talked about so many injuries, hamstring, groin, back to hamstring. He's their best special teams player, but they've been dealing with it for a while. And Mike Jacquet, a little, you know, he's an undrafted guy, but he was brought up because of injuries at corner. Now you have another injury at corner. On Saturday, you'll probably see the Eagles bring up a linebacker and a cornerback from the practice squad.
Is Jalen Hurts getting thrown to the wolves like I saw a friend of the show, Harry Mays? That's what he said earlier today, and I'm hearing a lot of different people say different variations of that statement. And listen, I know it's a very tall task for Jalen Hurts and his first start to be in this spot against the Saints with that defense and everything else going on his side of the fence, but I wasn't really looking at it to that extreme. I don't know if you think it's just a nightmare spot for him or somewhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's good. I mean, statistically, the Saints are the top defense in the NFL, so it would be easier against a lesser defense, certainly. And I asked Doug that today, as a matter of fact, in the morning press conference, and he said, look, this is the NFL. You're going to play tough defenses every week. And he's right, but there's also grades, obviously, to that. And, you know, they rank these teams for a reason, and they've been the best, and it's pretty large sample size. But it's also, as I said, the modern NFL. It's not the 85 Bears either. You can score on anybody in the modern NFL if you play good offense, and we'll see if the Eagles do that. I mean, they have so many issues otherwise. I think if you look at Jordan Mailata and Jack Driscoll playing the tackle positions against Cam Jordan and Hendrickson, that probably doesn't shape up too well. You got Nate Herbig back at right guard. There's some tough matchups. Let's just put it that way.
What do we need to happen on Sunday for everything to move in a positive direction, even if it's an inch? And I ask that because it might be Jalen Hurts not playing well and the team losing. Like, it might be more chaotic if he goes out there and plays well and, God forbid, they win outright.
Well, I think the path to that happening, and it is the NFL, it can happen. There's no question. I mean, who thought the Giants were beating the Seahawks? Who thought the Washington was going out and beating an undefeated Pittsburgh team? There are upsets in this league every week. I would look at Taysom Hill and say, this is his fourth start. One pretty much doesn't count, and that was that Denver game because that was the COVID game where they were playing a practice squad wide receiver quarterback, and they had so many COVID issues. So you can throw that one kind of out, and then you have two games, and they weren't that impactful offensively in either of them. So to me, they got to stop that running game, and they got to turn the football over. Now, they haven't been able to do that. The Eagles have been pretty good statistically on defense, but what they haven't been able to do is turn the football over. But, one fumble, two fumbles here, there, and that can turn things dramatically. And I think if you're going to look for the big upset, I think it's going to have to happen like that. They're just going to have to win the turnover battle, short fields, maybe a defensive touchdown, something of that nature, because obviously there's a pretty big personnel difference.
What are some of the key matchups that you're looking at for Sunday?
Well, the first I kind of mentioned those tackles against the Saints fronts, and the Saints edge rushers were really, really good. Then you start to look at Malcolm Jenkins returning and him matching up against whether it's Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders. I think that's going to be interesting for everybody. And from that point, I think we've been talking about it for a while from the Eagles' perspective. They need a big game for Miles Sanders, and they haven't been able to get it. And now that they have a quarterback in who can help with the running game, sort of like Hill can for the Saints, maybe that opens up some things for Miles Sanders. You go back to that Cleveland game in the first drive. That was the plan there, sort of. And it has been for a while. It was certainly that in Green Bay. It just didn't manifest itself. This team wants to shorten games, hopefully be in it in the fourth quarter, and try to win it with a big play. They haven't been able to do that because they can't run the football. When they do run the football, something bad happens, like a fumble.
What type of game can we expect from Jalen Hurts in the passing game? And that's not easy to predict, but just from a gambling perspective as well, do you think he could throw a couple touchdowns, a couple picks? How do you see his first start going through the air?
I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna generate some big plays by what he did. You saw in the limited play, less than a half in Green Bay. He's going to extend some plays, maybe be able to get outside the pocket, maybe hit somebody down the field. And I think there's going to be some mistakes. I mean, if you look at that Saints defensive backfield, Ryan, and it starts with Malcolm Jenkins, but that's a smart veteran group. At corner, you got Lattimore, you got Janoris Jenkins, you got Patrick Robinson, our old friend. And you got Malcolm Jenkins, Marcus Williams at safety. Just smart playmakers. So, I mean, they're licking their chops at a rookie quarterback. I think you're going to see a couple interceptions as well.
Miles Sanders' total rushing yards on DraftKings is set at 50.5. And you just mentioned a couple minutes ago they need something from him more than they've been getting. Do you like the over for that total?
I do, because they almost have to go the direction of running game, not only because of Miles, and he's their maybe most explosive player on offense, but also because that's what Jalen Hurts is as well, the dual threat quarterback, the run ability from that standpoint as well. So you have to figure there'll be more read option, more zone reads as well. And that should mean more opportunities for both of those guys in the running game, and it should make it a little bit easier for both of those guys, because that's the whole point of running that type of offense, is to try to trick the end and open up space for either or. So that will be a big part of the Eagles' game plan.
Michael Thomas, his total's at 72.5, and that is by far the biggest total set for receiving yards on Sunday. Are the Eagles in trouble there?
No, because of the quarterback. Remember, if it were Drew Brees, I'd say they were in trouble. What is it, 72? I'd say they were in trouble at 144. It's Taysom Hill. They're not going to throw the ball a lot. And when they do throw it, it's probably going to be more pedestrian throws. In the flat stuff, maybe smoke screens, hitch routes, simple stuff, similar to what you expect from Jalen Hurts. And so I mean, that's my whole theory why the Eagles are going to keep this closer as a whole, because that's the way the Saints are playing right now. If Drew Brees was in there chucking football, I think the Eagles would be in for a long, long afternoon. But they're getting a bit of a break because the Saints have to play a different way with Taysom Hill. Heck, if Jameis Winston was in there, I'd probably say 144 for Michael Thomas.
Who are we going to be talking about on Monday on the Eagles side of things, whether it's good or bad?
Well, obviously we're going to be talking about Jalen Hurts.
Of course.
Hopefully he's not benched at halftime. Hopefully he plays well. And then, we're going to be talking about Miles Sanders, good or bad. Does he have the big game that everybody's been waiting for? Seems like we've been waiting all year. Some of these young receivers, one of the things about this quarterback switch, and it's very difficult because of, COVID-19 world, and we're not in the locker room, and heck, the players aren't in the locker room much together, just very small groups. So it's tough to get a feel, but you see this kind of generational shift in, guys like Fletcher and Jason Kelsey and Brandon Graham talking about Carson Wentz, what a great teammate. And then some of the younger guys, understandably so, coming in the same draft class, Jalen Reagor and John Hightower, and those guys developed their rapport with Jalen Hurts. So maybe they get more involved. And maybe some of the speed the Eagles were talking about in the spring, maybe we can see some of it, because we haven't seen – well, that's not true. I shouldn't say that. We've seen John Hightower's speed. He runs by people, and he generally runs out of the end zone before he can catch the football.
One area, and you've talked about Taysom Hill and how much different it is than Drew Brees, of course. Hill protecting the ball and his pocket awareness has been – shaky at best. So how do the Eagles take advantage of that? Can they take advantage of that?
Yeah, they have to. When I talk about turnovers and they have to win the turnover battle, I'm thinking more fumbles than interceptions, because they just haven't been able. They just don't have guys who've been able to intercept the football. That's just certain guys have a feel for it. You saw it. Darius Slay certainly did in Detroit for whatever reason. It hasn't happened here. Hasn't manifested really anywhere across the secondary. So it's got to be fumbles, and this is a quarterback susceptible to that. And as you mentioned, he doesn't have a ton of experience in the pocket, manipulating himself in the pocket. This isn't Aaron Rodgers. So if you do get him to hold the football, if he doesn't realize somebody's behind him, you might see it pop out, and I think that's that's pretty much the path to victory for the Eagles in this game.
The defense has been consistent. We've talked about that a lot, and I think it's been overlooked. I know it's been overlooked from the fan base because of how much has gone wrong overall. So let's see if they're able to capitalize there. And then just back to the offense, and this will tie into your prediction and score, and we'll assess that. But the Eagles just haven't been able to score. They have yet to exceed 17 points. They've averaged 15.2 points on the offensive side in the past 5 games. I've seen some score predictions, John, 27-3, 30-6. So are the Eagles going to be able to even get into double digits, and then you can kind of parlay that into your prediction and final analysis?
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame anybody for thinking they can't get into double digits. On paper, it looks like a terrible matchup. I mean, not only the first-time starter quarterback, but so many inexperienced offensive linemen playing against a great defensive line. I mentioned that secondary. Davis, a linebacker for the Saints, is a tremendous playmaker. They have playmakers at all 3 levels. And, you know, you kind of, we've talked about these receivers all year. This doesn't strike me as the week that they're going to get open against this group of all groups. So it is difficult on paper. And I think it can go one of 2 ways. People are going to the Eagles are just going to fall apart, and they're going to score 3 or 6 points, and it's going to be that ugly. Or Jalen Hurts is going to give that spark that Doug Peterson talked about, and everybody's going to elevate their play. And I think that would obviously excite people. I think, as usual, it's probably going to be a little bit in between. I think he is going to make some plays because he is able to get out of the pocket. And so I do think they'll get to probably 17 maybe, but that won't be enough. But it'll be closer, 23-17 I have. I don't think the Saints are blowing them out because the Saints don't play that way right now without Drew Brees. So I think by nature they almost keep it competitive. And the only way it's a 2-touchdown game, as you mentioned, is 23-6 or something of that nature, which is certainly possible. But I think Jalen Hurts is going to have enough use to, and it might be sandlot football. It might not be in the game plan. It might not be part of the offense, but I think he's going to be able to make some plays down the field by extending plays. Cheap plug.
There you go, and we'll get to that in a second. 23-17, John McMullen says that would be an Eagles cover. That would be an under for the total. And I have the amount of times that the TV camera cuts to Carson Wentz on the sideline set at 4.5, and I'm taking the over.
I'm taking way over, way over that. Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult week for Carson, no question about it. But he's put himself in this position. I mean, I was one of the guys who kind of defended him longer than most, and at halftime is when I tweeted out against the Packers, you got to bench him. I mean, he benched himself. If the owner wanted him out there, he benched himself. That's how poorly he played. But I will say this, and you know, everybody knows how poorly Carson has played. If you look at Pro Football Focus, they had him ranked 31st, which is a disaster. Guess who number 32 is, Ryan?
I don't even know. Tell me.
Taysom Hill.
Right, I should have guessed that.
So he's not playing great either.
No, he's not. But we're all enamored by him for some reason, and we'll see what he's able to do against this Eagles defense come Sunday. John, a couple more for you. Number one, what do you have going on tomorrow on extending the play?
Tomorrow, I think we'll bring up the quarterback controversy. I think we'll talk about the future as it pertains to Carson Wentz, because I think that's the bigger story than what's going on Sunday. And we got my buddy Nick Fierro returning to the program from the Allentown Morning Call. Rich Q will be in the studio, so we always have a lot of fun on Saturday mornings.
There you go, extending the play. Johnny Mack, Rich Q involved. Always great stuff, extending the play, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. I have to do this to you, John. I need your thoughts. James Harden, and now it was reported just about earlier tonight that the Sixers have become the front runners in the James Harden sweepstakes, and that implies trading Ben Simmons. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't really buy Daryl Morey not looking to improve this team and riding with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. I never bought it. I think he will look to get that done. Obviously, he would, in theory, have the inside track, and I think it's a lot of speculation more than reporting, to be honest. But I mean, I would think in a heartbeat he would trade for James Harden, and he would use Ben Simmons to do it, and he would be dumb if he didn't.
I agree, and we talk about this with Miles Sanders, and it's not apples to apples. Ben Simmons he's a star, and he has a lot of flaws. I criticize him as much as anyone, but he ain't James Harden. Like, just because he's a young all-star doesn't mean he's James Harden. Fans out there, it's okay to let go. That would be a massive win for the Sixers and the city.
Yeah, he's a very good player. He's much more accomplished than somebody like Miles Sanders. But, I mean, and I would say the better comparison, and he's still better. He's better than Andre Iguodala. But I think it was interesting because he's the same type of player. He does different things in scoring. And, Sixers fans would not accept that and recognize that Andre was a really good player. In the case of Ben, they think he is a really good player. And from a trade standpoint, he is, but he's not at the superstar level. And I don't know. I talk about it all the time. Why do you latch on to certain players? Why do you not latch on to other players? I don't know. If I figure that out, it's been a long time. I don't think I'm ever figuring that out.
Yeah, that's a good one to ponder.
I guess the draft positioning, I guess that would be it.
The state of the team, too, like when the player is being criticized or overly praised, like what his role is on the team, like all those other factors, too, build the perception of him, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, James Harden is obviously an MVP level type player, arguably the top scorer in this league, and you can imagine end of games with Harden and Embiid versus end of games with Embiid and Ben Simmons. I think that would make it a lot easier for Doc Rivers, to say the least.
It's a great point, and we'll end on that. That's a mic drop. I don't know how you can argue that. That's the perfect way to describe it. All right, John, I appreciate it as always. Have fun on the show tomorrow, extending the play. Make sure everyone tunes in 10 a.m. to 11, and we'll talk to John Monday recapping Jalen Hurts' first start. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Ryan. All
right, man. Later. There he is, Johnny Mack. Follow him on Twitter at JF McMullen. I'm getting tired. Like, I've been asking John the same questions all week about, like, I started off the week, and I think John and I had some really good conversations on Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday, because it was more bigger picture type of items, and that's what John's going to get into tomorrow on extending the play. Tonight, my opinion, we have John on Friday night. We have to do a full preview of the Eagles game. That's just how it is, and I'm not complaining about it. It's needed. We're in Eagles country. John's the best Eagles insider there is. But it's just, how many Jalen Hurts questions, how many score predictions, how many Miles Sanders, and who needs to play well. It's like, and I just say this because this team is just such a disaster, and we've seen the same thing now week after week, and it's just like, all right, let's just get to the game and see what happens, and hopefully something else happens so we can talk about a different story or two, have some different headlines, good, bad, or indifferent. We'll see.